Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Why True Loyalty Starts with the Fourth Visit. My name is Ryan DeLillo. I'm a content specialist with Paytronix, and I will be your host today. Taking a look at today's agenda, we'll begin with discussing why the fourth visit is so crucial from a loyalty program nurturing perspective. Then we'll move on to discussing some tools to get guests to that fourth visit quicker. And we'll conclude by talking through some campaign models for how to nurture and maintain the guest relationship. So first, the value of loyalty, just to sort of set the stage. Why does loyalty matter? Why are we talking about it today? Loyalty programs do more than foster goodwill between the consumer and the brand. They provide tremendous insight into guest behavior and preference. They inform and enhance marketing efforts, and they provide a line of direct communication to the guest. Now, over the past few years, we've seen so many brands either launch or revamp programs to foster this connection between brand and guest. Additionally, through conducting credit card analyses for dozens of these brands and millions of individual consumers, Paytronix has found that most loyalty programs consistently boost visits and spend by 18 to 30% per enrolled member. And in addition to this lift, loyalty programs provide other benefits. The data collected through these programs, from member demographics to visit frequency to most popular menu items, is invaluable to any brand seeking to understand its guests better. This information can be leveraged to make strategic business decisions and market more effectively. It can also be interpreted with artificial intelligence to uncover hidden patterns and trends. Now, why is the fourth visit so crucial? Today, guests have always had dining options, but in recent years, the range of options has really exploded. Broadly speaking, there are three categories of options for attaining a meal. First, there's making that meal at home. There's Blue Apron or HelloFresh, other brands that have created a new option for meal preparation. These concepts offer innovative restaurant-style food that people can quickly and easily prepare at home. And these market entrants make it even more challenging for marketers to lure buyers from this category. Second is purchasing a meal prepared elsewhere and consuming it at home, takeout. The options here are growing too. Grocery stores have improved their prepared food sections, restaurants have expanded to-go offerings and delivery, as well as adding options for online ordering and curbside pickup. And companies like Grubhub and Foodler make it possible to have food delivered from more places than ever. And then lastly, there's the eating out option. Whether a QSR or an FSR or a C-store, millions of consumers continue to enjoy the dining out experience or getting food out on the go. As the consumer's options continue to rise, the cost of customer acquisition for restaurant brands and C-stores increases and customer loyalty decreases. Now, to get a good return on investment from acquiring new customers, it's more important than ever that those experiencing a brand for the first time become repeat customers. And the challenge there is to motivate a second, third, and eventually fourth visit. Now, if a brand can nurture guests to the fourth visit, that's when the payback is really excellent. In fact, it is 90% likely that those who visit a fourth time will continue to visit on a regular basis. In other words, they'll demonstrate brand loyalty. So we've established that the fourth visit is really the threshold for sort of routinizing guest behavior and forming a habit. So let's delve into the math there. We examined guest behavior over time through two study groups. The first consisted of loyalty program members for a group of QSR chains, and the second was loyalty members from a group of FSR chains. What we found was that more guests visit, the more likely they are to visit again. This is not surprising. However, what is surprising is the dramatic increase in how likely guests are to return if we can get them back for visits 2, 3, and 4. Take a look at the graph below. For a full service restaurant, there is only a 45% chance that first-time guests will return within the next 6 months. If we can get them back for just a second visit, you can see that percentage increases to 75%. Then by their fourth visit, there's a 90% chance that they're going to be back within 6 months. Now, the results are not quite as dramatic for quick service restaurants, but the pattern still holds. Following the first visit, whether a guest will return is about a 50-50 chance. After 2 visits, there's a 70% chance, and by fourth visit, they're up to 85%. likelihood of returning within 6 months. Now, whether you operate an FSR or QSR on the restaurant side, that's a compelling reason to create and implement a marketing strategy that's focused on getting as many guests as possible to their 4th visit. And there's the proverbial gold mine once guests move along the path that far. Further findings in this same study show that the first-time FSR guests on average can be expected to return about 2.5 times. So those guests who, to reiterate, the study found that first-time FSR guests can be expected to return about 2.5 times. Now, once the guests reach the second visit, that figure increases to about 4.9 times. Thus, when brands are successful at compelling a second visit, the future expected value of those guests doubles. Now, marketers need levers that they can employ to produce predictable outcomes: visits, revenue, discount, spending, etc. You can use the data collected in your CRM system to develop a customer nurturing campaign designed to propel guests to that 4th visit threshold. This takes having a clear strategy based on how long certain customers have been with you and how many times they've visited. Now, each brand's strategy will be different, but we found that an escalating sequence of offers with more generous ones for lower frequency customers can make a meaningful impact on the early engagement with your brand. Now let's talk about a few effective messages. And I'll note here that on the Paytronix website, under our resource section, we actually have a great ebook that highlights 10 messages to send your guests. These are 4 that we found particularly helpful in getting guests up to that 4th visit threshold, but there's more within that resource for messages after guests have become real loyalty members. So the first example is a welcome message. This is the first message you're going to send your guests. Especially if guests are signing up in line when they're interacting at the POS, it's unlikely that they've received all the information to know the ins and outs of your program. So this is a really great way to pass along all the different benefits and really provide in-depth knowledge about your program. Now, because you've got a lot to say, it's probably best done in an email. If you do want to send a welcome text message, it should be short and direct them to an email or a link to a landing page that's a bit more detailed. Now, if guests sign up for a program on site and then never hear about it again, they don't really understand what they've signed up for or how to interact with the program in the future, so they risk going inactive. This is the first step in really hyping up this bond you made with a customer, welcoming them to your brand, and setting the stage for what they can expect moving forward. Another useful message here is a registration reward reminder. This is a message that can be effective to send guests as a reminder that they have a reward just for registering for your program. This message kind of works in accordance with the idea that getting guests to their first reward as quickly as possible is really important for getting them to that second visit. Overall, it increases their buy-in to your program and just lets them see the value in it right away, as opposed to using that sort of carrot on a stick approach in which they have to continue working and working for a reward right out of the gate. You want to determine the best time to send this reward based on when the reward expires. So give guests enough time to come in and use it. And that time frame will likely differ whether you're a full service casual dining concept, QSR, C-store. It's all got to be sort of in sync with what is a typical desirable cadence for visits at your brand. Now, this type of message is well suited for any type of medium, whether it's email, push, pull, or geofencing. In this scenario, reminding guests that they have a reward when they're in the vicinity of one of your locations in the context of geofencing is especially effective in compelling them to visit. And I will add, this is also an excellent way, without any additional incentives to drive engagement. It's purely a reminder message. Your brand isn't taking on any further risk. It's just a way of reminding folks that they've got a reason to come back. And we've seen really staggering results on these messages. Another example is a bounce back message. Typically, it's seen as kind of the third message in our sequence of getting guests to that fourth visit. Typically, it's best suited for email, but can be also messaged through push-pull notifications. One reason you might want to use a bounce back message after a guest redeems their first reward is we find that the likelihood of a guest coming back greatly increases after the fourth visit. So if a guest registers for your program as visit 1, redeems their welcome reward as visit 2, and you want to get them to visits 3 and 4, because at that point you'll see a shift in behavior, these bounce back messages can be a great way to sort of bring them home. If you use this type of message later in the customer lifecycle, you'll just want to filter out members who already have high engagement and don't need these offers in order to remain engaged. Otherwise, you kind of risk cannibalizing the offer. It's worth clarifying that these bounce back offers are usually kind of the sweetest offer. They sort of have the largest liability. It's usually a very generous offer to really lock in guests for that third or fourth visit. Now, the last message here is a registration reward reminder that it's going to expire. You might have noticed that these first messages are super early in the interactions with a new member, and that's because, like I mentioned before, getting them to that fourth visit is important. This last message is really critical for getting members to that magical fourth visit, as it's likely a sufficient amount of time has lapsed such that they are coming up on that expiration for a reward registration registration reward that they might have forgotten about. So obviously you'll have to figure out how close to the reward expiration you want to send this order in order to be this offer in order to be effective. Some place that sells daily items like coffee may want to send it out a little closer to the expiration date, rather say in contrast to a full service restaurant where the length between visits tends to be longer. So again, kind of that idea of syncing up with your brand's standard visit cadence or visit frequency, excuse me. But this can be another great reward. Again, not offering anything else. It's just a reminder to get that guest to engage and redeem that reward and visit your brand again. Now, shifting, I want to talk about some campaigns. Now, one way to get guests to visit more frequently is a visit challenge. And the best way is interacting with them on a one-to-one level, such that you are giving guests a challenge that fits their individual visit frequency. So take this graph as an example of guests who have visited in a month. You see a lot of members who maybe aren't visiting in a given month at all, a good amount that visit once a month, and then it decreases down the line. If you wanted to run a visit challenge in order to drive incremental visits, where might you set the threshold? If you set a visit challenge at 5 visits, you can reach those accounts who are slightly below the level required for a reward, but who would find the 5 visit threshold achievable. So those who are already making 2 to 4 visits a month, but you can't send a challenge to everyone else because they're already visiting that frequently. So that would be where your risk for cannibalization would arise. If you bump the challenge threshold up to 8, you can reach those guests, but now you miss out on the people with lower frequency, who are actually quite a large portion of your member base and might see that challenge as unachievable. So it's difficult to sort of, in both of those approaches, you're missing a segment of your guests, a significant population of your guests. And that's why running a one-to-one visit challenge is so crucial, because you can challenge each guest with something achievable that shortens the time between their next visit. So currently, from customers who have used these one-to-one visit challenges, we've seen a 117% increase in reach, and on average, a nearly 5 times sales lift. Now, if you can reach each person and push each visit to be incremental, then you're driving increases in visits and spend. You can also modify the promotions so that the best promotion is going to go out to each guest. Maybe for some guests, the best promo is to visit 5 times during July and receive 100 points, but maybe for others, it might be to visit 6 times in maybe 2 weeks. Machine learning and AI can be really helpful here in figuring out which combination of these variables is going to result in the highest ROI. Now, I want to switch to talk about online ordering. In the 2022 online ordering report, we dove into the likelihood of off-premises guests returning as well. For many of these guests, especially delivery customers, you may not have interacted with them much at all throughout their whole experience. You may only know how they felt about their experience based on reviews or surveys. The risk of poor reviews may cause some establishments to shy away from digital ordering. While this is a legitimate concern, there are proven strategies restaurants and C-stores can implement to bounce back from a poor review and solidify customer loyalty, especially within the timeline between a guest visiting for the first time and them achieving that fourth visit in which they're locked into a loyalty program. So first, it's important to consider the potential implications of a review. Now, not surprisingly, customers who give the restaurant or C-store a rating of 4.9 or higher are most likely to return. Meanwhile, one-star ratings may not be the most pleasant to receive. They're not necessarily indicative of a customer's behavior, as customers who leave one-star ratings are as likely to return as those who leave a 2.4-star rating. Customers leaving a one-star review may be acting in the heat of the moment or reacting without consideration, or may even be leaving simple reviews to speed through the process. Now, reviews with more nuance are typically written with more scrutiny. The best indicator of whether a patron will return is if they received exemplary food, service, and value. Customers who give 5-star reviews in those particular categories are most likely to revisit. And the 3 categories correlate with likelihood to return almost exactly. However, as the ratings drop, value becomes more important than both food and service. At 1 and 2-star ratings, customers are more forgiving of poor food and service experiences than they are if they feel their dollar was not well spent. Customers require high marks across the board to give an establishment a top rating, but they will be satisfied at knowing that their money's worth even if the food and service are marginal. Receiving a poor review should be viewed as an invitation, not a dismissal. Our data indicates restaurant and C-store operators can provide positive guest experiences in the wake of a bad review. To salvage the guest relationship after a less than stellar review, offering a coupon may be the best move a restaurant or C-store can make. Not only does it improve the chance a guest will return, but the marketing investment for this type of incentive just makes sense. Here, time is of the essence when a customer has a poor experience. Paytronix guest surveys relay customer reviews to the store manager immediately. The store manager can then change a quality control issue and send a guest recovery coupon and message right away. Now, no one wants to see a 1-star review, but with a planned coupon strategy and the right technology to put control in the frontline manager's hands, brands can flip the script and help turn negative reviews into profitable customers and also repeat customers that you can set on a course for future visits by winning them back. So let's say, for example, your brand averages a 4-star rating. Well, that's pretty good. Well, maybe. Doing some sentiment analysis can help determine what customers actually think of your brand. The rating an establishment receives and the words that accompany the rating may actually tell 2 very different stories. Paytronix data shows that 15% of orders with a rating of 4.5 or better actually have a negative sentiment and could benefit from action, while 3-star reviews most frequently contain negative sentiment. Sentiment analysis, which can be accomplished using AI, is one tool that can help. Sentiment analysis enables the store manager to identify negative reviews that otherwise would have been missed and to act quickly to recover the situation. This is important because sentiment scores are nearly as accurate a predictor of whether a patron will return as the ratings themselves. And something that's really interesting here that we're just looking into early results on is in speaking with some customers of ours, we've also realized that the feedback tool or guest surveys, along with sentiment analysis, can actually protect a brand's social media as well as other avenues to leave reviews like Yelp because of the rapidity with which managers can reach out and address and rectify a situation. So another powerful tool there to have as your sort of growing guest lifetime value and getting them to that 4th visit. Being able to quickly address an unsatisfactory experience. Thank you all very much for attending this afternoon's webinar. I hope that you enjoy your day.